What if the only thing standing between you and your dream is how fast you think it's supposed to happen? Today, we're talking about big goals, slow hikes, and what success really means when you're going at your own pace.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time.
And today we're talking about pacing your passions. How fast is fast enough for making your dreams come true? And what if the real magic isn't in the deadline, but in the direction? So last week we had an interview with Nikki Priest, and so you probably want to listen to that episode after this one. And she is a guide for hikes that go through the Swiss Alps. She'll go out for 1 week or 2 weeks, take groups on these guided hiking tours through the Alps. And she shared something with us that really stuck out. Do you remember what it was for you?
Yeah, she said, she used the term slow Swiss pace.
Like steady.
Or steady Swiss pace.
We'll also have to go back.
We should go back and listen to it, apparently. But she talked about how Americans will get out there and kind of sprint up through these sections and get to a place like, a ridgeline or something, and they'll stop and they'll rest and just recover. And that these old Swiss people will just walk at a very gentle, gradual pace, nonstop. And she said it's just classic tortoise and the hare, where these slow, steady Swiss hikers who are, from first glance might not be the most fit or spry out there on the mountains, are the ones that are getting to the destination first. They're beating the fast, rapid, sprinting Americans. And so we just love that phrase. Now I'm self-conscious. I don't know if I want to say slow Swiss pace or steady Swiss pace. Let's go with steady.
Both. Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
The speed we don't know, but they were steady for sure.
Yeah.
I also loved that she said about the hiking, we were asking, like, what is the fitness level you have to be able to do a 2-week hiking journey? And she said, you do need to have some fitness level, but with hiking, the great thing is if you go slow enough, pretty much anyone can do it. And it made me think that is pretty true with a lot of goals that we might have in our life. I was listening to someone who helps with health and fitness, and she said, gosh, everybody wants to hear lose 21 pounds in 21 days. But when I say lose 3 pounds a month every month for 7 months, nobody wants to sign up for my course. But it's that gentle pace that along the way, you're cultivating the new habits, you're becoming the new person. It makes it easy and gentle and totally doable. And there's nothing like extreme or rushed about it. And I'm like, what else? What else could we apply that sort of thinking to? If you go slow enough, almost anyone can do it. And so actually, Erik had a story of a rap artist that I'd never heard of before. I don't know if this was a slow pace or not, but okay, we'll come back to stay tuned for the story about the rap artist. When we went to move aboard a sailboat with our 5 children, the sailboat was called Fezziwig, and we did set a timeline. Our timeline was multiple years. Knowing what we know now, we could have cut the timeline in half or into a third, maybe even. But we were pretty nervous, and everything was so new to us. And every time we take a new step, we really needed to reflect and assimilate and decide if we wanted to move forward or not. And there was a lot of fear we were navigating in our first go around, and it took the time that it took. Maybe we could have done it faster, but our window was based on when our children were going to be moving out of the house, which was inevitable. They were going to grow up. They were going to move out. We couldn't hang on to them forever just so that they could join us for our dream sabbatical. but not every dream has to have a deadline or a close deadline. Anyway, I'm curious, Eric, have you ever had a dream or a goal that's so big that you hesitated to even start because it just felt so far away?
I still do.
Okay, good
I
for
definitely
you.
do. And I, oh man, as you're talking, I'm actually going to jot down a few things because I want to remember these are all examples of the pace at which something happens. And yeah, I wanted to come back to this story of the rapper that you're talking about. But I think, sorry, your question is, do I have any dreams that are so daunting that I don't even have or I'm too scared to start?
Like anything that just feels so big that you don't even want to start because it feels so far away. You might be the wrong person to ask this question, but
no, I mean, I think, and we talk about this in our online course, in the Navigator framework. I feel like climbing El Cap was definitely that for me. It felt so big and so far beyond me. And for any of you that have been following us for a while, you know this story. But for those of you that might not, I rock climbed a ton when I was a teenager. When I became a young dad, I gave it up essentially for about 20 years. And after we came back from living on the sailboat, once it was all wrapped up, like we'd sold the boat, the trip was done, I was back at work, we were earning money again. We kind of just looked around and thought, if we can do that, what else can we do? And one of the answers that I had was, I've always wanted to climb El Capitan in Yosemite, but have always felt very intimidated by it. I was out of shape. My rock climbing gear was old and kind of obsolete, and my skills were really dull. And anyway, it just seemed like, I was in my early 40s now, and it just seemed like, nah, that one wasn't going to work out. And so it was so daunting that I didn't even want to start. And, another time we can tell the whole story, but suffice it to say, you encouraged me to just go to Yosemite and just explore around, poke around, do what we call a scouting trip.
Just go see it.
And I was shocked that within 2 years, first of all, within 1 year, we were back in Yosemite and I was climbing walls that were in preparation for El Capitan. And then within 2 years, I had done it, and I've since done it a second time. And so that was one where I just didn't realize how quickly it could happen. And, but I was too afraid to start because it felt like in some way I was unworthy of that dream. It was just beyond me.
It's going to be impossible for whatever reason. Yeah.
Can I share? I have a couple of examples
please.
that popped to mind as you were talking. One was this. We always had this idea, like once we retire, it'll be so fun. We'll go to Europe and we'll get a van and we'll do a road trip across Europe. And I don't know if you have that same dream or not. Probably not, but we thought that would be pretty cool. And it was the year before our book 7 at Sea came out. And we got a call from some friends who said, hey, we need help moving our sailboat from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean. Are you interested? And the short answer was yes, we were. Oh, by the way, we also need to in addition to moving our boat, we need to move our van from Greece to Portugal. Basically all the way from, Greece isn't part of the EU, but kind of like just like the most Eastern Europe all the way to the most Western Europe. And would we help them move their van? Yes. Did we have the money to do this trip? Not really. But we just thought, hey, this is something we thought, eventually when we have enough money and time and retirement and all that, we would want to do a trip like this. But we're literally being told, hey, you'll have the van for free. You got to cover your own gas.
You'll have somewhere to live, either on our boat or in our home.
Yeah, you'll have a place you can live on our boat with us at the front end, and then you can move into our house in Portugal temporarily on the back end. And we're just like,
logistically, it could never be smoother.
It could not be simpler. We'd have to go there and buy a van or rent a van or ship a van over there. And so we just thought, this is not coming on the timeline that we expected. It's coming 10, 20 years sooner than we thought.
And with friends, even better.
Yeah. And our kids, we had still had 3 kids with us out of 5. So
that was also a bonus.
Yeah.
Logistically challenging, but satisfying.
all that to say, you and I talked about it, and we said, if we were retired, we would do this. So
this is what we would spend our money on.
So we actually decided to dip a little bit into our retirement fund and take this trip, because we're like, we're just going to do the thing we would do in retirement, but we're going to do it a little bit early. I'm sure there's a little bit of a tax penalty but like, we did it. And now we get to enjoy the memory of it for all this time, all the decades, or however much time we have after.
I remember thinking, I know for sure right now that my knees are good and I'm physically able to do this trip that I hope I'll be physically able to do in 10, 15, 20 years. And yeah, all of it lined up to be like, could not be a better time.
Yeah. So that's just an example of something coming much sooner than we had expected. And we went for it. And I'm really, really glad we did.
Yeah, me too.
The other one is
because after that, the stock market tanked and we would have lost all that money anyway. And this way we got to spend it on stuff we cared about first.
Yeah, that was right before COVID.
That was just a little pat on the back for us afterwards. But
yeah, like everyone's portfolio took a dip during COVID, and we just went to cash and used some of it before it had a chance to depreciate. Can I share another example?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
And I've talked about this on a previous episode. I cannot remember which one it was, but it's Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek, what we would say, he's a thought leader.
Yeah, he's an optimist.
His little pun is his last name is Sinek, Sinek, and he says, I'm an optimist. Get it?
Yeah.
Okay. So he tells this story about how you get fit. You were telling this story about this woman who's like, lose 3 pounds for every month for 7 months.
Yeah. And nobody wants to do that plan. It's too long.
Nobody wants to do that plan. But he's like, if you get a gym membership and you start going to the gym, when do you get fit? Nobody really knows. He says, but this is what I do know, is that if you keep at it, at some point you're going to get to a place where you can say, now I'm fit.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the distance or the duration don't really matter more than the thing that matters most is the direction. And you and I have talked about this. If you face in the right direction, you keep moving one step at a time, and you consistently move in that direction. This goes back to that steady Swiss pace, slow, steady Swiss pace.
Mm-hmm.
If you just keep moving, no matter how fast or slow, you will inevitably get there. And that's Simon Sinek's point. He's like, when will you get fit? It's going to vary for each person. Some people it's going to be quicker. Some people it's going to take longer. But if you keep at it, you will get fit. And so, anyway, I just think that's a great example of, he's like, forget the timeline. Just fall in love with the process. Keep going at a pace that you can maintain for the long haul. And you will for sure arrive.
Thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of this guy, Earl Nightingale. He actually was somebody who was, I guess, what we might call a thought leader or a motivational speaker. When my mom was growing up, in their household,
in the 40s,
they listened to these records in their house. And he talked about the definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. And basically, once you even know what your goal is and you take the tiniest step in that direction, you are successful because you are on the path to realizing that goal. I don't want to be elitist about it, but there really are so many people who aren't really sure what their goal is or what it is that they want most or hope to accomplish. And it's very hard to be successful when you don't know what success means to you. So I like that he's saying, look, once you know what it is and you take any step at all in that direction, it's very much in line with what Simon Sinek is also saying. So success isn't just about achieving the goal, but it's about advancing, even when you're moving really slowly. Do you ever feel pressure to assign a date to like a big idea, or do you just let it unfold at a natural pace?
I think that there is a time and a place for both scenarios.
Diplomatic.
Thank you. I'm Switzerland.
Swiss pace.
Just speaking of a Swiss pace.
Actually, it's Sweden.
No,
No, just kidding. That's our inside joke for our family. Sorry.
Our daughter said Sweden one time. We never let her forget it. That's like saying, what does ignorant mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, okay. I guess
Pressure to assign a date or let it unfold at its own pace, and either one or the other or a combination.
Sorry, I'm so distracted by what you're talking about, Earl Nightingale.
Let's go back to Earl Nightingale.
First of all, I've listened to some Earl Nightingale. You can get him on any streaming platform. You don't have to listen. You don't have to have a record player to listen to him.
Yeah, you can listen to him on YouTube.
He's out there in the world, and one of my role models, and maybe I could say our role models, is a woman named Sarah Blakely, and she invented a product called Spanx, and she became it's shapewear for women, and she became a self-made billionaire with this product. And she goes back to when she was a teenager, and she would listen to Earl Nightingale in the 70s, 80s.
Maybe I thought she listened to Wayne Dyer.
Well, she listened to him as well.
Oh, both.
Wayne Dyer and Earl Nightingale. And what these guys are talking about is just the mentality of we get ourselves stuck into what we think it should be instead of what it could be. And we assign a specific timeline to when things are supposed to happen in our lives. And then we won't let ourselves get ahead of it, but we also beat ourselves up if we get behind it. And the fact is, we never really know at what pace things are going to unfold. And we all, in our culture, we tend to celebrate people that get successful quickly because that's the dream. That's sort of the Cinderella story of whatever industry, the J.K. Rowling or athletes that get successful and famous young, or pop stars, musicians, movie stars. When in fact, and that can happen. It can happen quickly, but it can also happen slowly and steadily.
Like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, there's all kinds of memes and reels out there about Henry Ford didn't start Ford Motors until he was 40, and Morgan Freeman didn't land his first major role until he was 50, and things like that kind of give you confidence that, hey, if you haven't reached these breakthrough moments by a certain age, it's okay. There's plenty of examples of people that are moving at the same rate or even slower than you are, and that can be encouraging. And maybe we'll want to come back to skiing here in a second. But to the question about assigning a deadline or not, I think that there's a time and a place for both. And I wished I was more clear on when I would apply both. But having something that you want to accomplish with no deadline can be very freeing. It can be very lazy if you're just saying, if you ever say, "Oh, I'll do that someday," that's bad. That is bad. But if you say, "This is what I want to have happen, and I'm going to do something towards it every day,
or every week,
but if you set a steady pace that you can maintain, then I think that the deadline becomes much less relevant because it's inevitable. When you commit to, yes, I'm going to do something steadily towards this goal, and you free yourself of the pressure of a timeline, then you can just have fun with it and just trust that it will unfold and it'll happen at the time that it's supposed to. So I think that there is a freedom in that. I think one of the tension points between us is that sometimes I will actually say, let's do this by this date, and it will seem like a crazy, impossible, unrealistic timeline. And it can create a lot of pressure.
It's that idea of shoot for the moon and get some stars.
Yeah. And I think, Steve Jobs was famous for this. When, you read his biography by Walter Isaacson, he would come up with the most insane timelines for getting a product ready and shipped to market. And people would just go crazy with the deadline. And he would just look at them and say, look, you need to get your head around this. This is not an impossibility. And he would, what do they call it? Like reality warping was sort of the term that people around him would use, that he would convince people that something that they previously thought was impossible was now possible. And simply because they believed it, they would do it. And so I guess I would just say that we can play with both. I don't think we have to be locked into one or the other, but it's okay to play with both. And I think sometimes we'll surprise ourselves by setting a timeline that just seems ludicrous, and then it happens even quicker than we thought.
When you have clear what it is you want to do and you write it down, it often does happen much more quickly than you think. I know we once did this practice where we gave ourselves kind of a 10-year horizon and said, fast forward 10 years, what are some of the things that we would like to have accomplished? And we wrote down many things. And because they were written down and we knew what they were and we could tell like how to move forward in those different areas, we surprised ourselves because we actually had accomplished all of those things in only 5 years. And then it was time to re-up, reconsider. And I would say in this area, this is a place for you to know yourself and to be really self-aware, because like Erik is saying, sometimes having a timeline actually can motivate you, but sometimes it can be demotivating and it can make you want to quit. It can be discouraging. It can make you feel like there's no hope for you. And that's one way that you'll know whether the timeline is working for you, whether it's the right amount of time for you or not. And to your example of Steve Jobs, sometimes he was able to extract incredible things out of the geniuses that worked with him. And we all got to benefit from those things. Like, what if we weren't getting the iPhone 16 until, 10 years from now?
Yeah, we would be lost.
What would we do if these inventions hadn't come out sooner? What if the iPhone
We'd still be buying CDs and going to Blockbuster.
We just it would just happen when it happens, But he really was a visionary, and he really was able to get so much done in so little time. And yeah, I guess if you want to read his book, you can decide whether you feel like that was worth the trade-off that came about for it. But sometimes having a timeline, like I would say an example would be traveling. We're traveling somewhere and we know we're only going to be there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It changes how we go about interacting with that place or those people, because we'll say, well, we only have 3 days here. What do we want to see? Or we only have 2 weeks here, or we only have 2 months here. We know we're going to be able to have some at-home days, but we don't want to miss out on whatever these highlights are that we're really interested in. But if you say, I just live here, I live here forever. I mean, we've lived here in Salt Lake for 3 years, and there are so many basic things that we've never seen and never done. We've gone out traveling all around the world and seen other things in other places, and we hardly know our own city because we have this indefinite timeline for when we might be able to see and explore, and so we don't get out. So sometimes having a timeline can help, and sometimes it can be discouraging, and only you can tell what the difference is, and you can play with that slider. But I also know about a woman, I don't really follow her, but I heard the story about her. Her name is Rachel Hollis, and she had written on her page of goals that she wanted to have a New York Times bestseller. And she put it on every year, and every year she just moved it forward to the next year's set of goals because she didn't accomplish it in that year. And she said, if I had given up and said, well, I didn't do it this year or the next year or the third year or the fifth year, I guess I should just give up on it, then she never would have done it. And she proceeded and just said, well, it hasn't happened yet. And so she kept it on her list. She kept it on her horizon. And she eventually, tipped the scale. She had a New York Times bestseller, which then led to multiple New York Times bestsellers. I don't care what your goal is. I don't care if it's to be a bestseller or to have a land speed record or to be the first or the last to do something. The point is, I think what Earl Nightingale said is that what do you think is a worthy goal? And once you know what that worthy goal is, then you can define success as your progress towards that worthy goal.
I don't want to leave our listeners hanging about this rapper story.
Okay, let's hear about the rapper.
Okay, Doechii. I have not listened to anything that she's made.
Yeah, this is not an official recommendation. It's just the story.
All I know is that I saw a reel or something on Instagram where she had just been fired from her job at Starbucks. And she says, I'm looking for new opportunities, ideally internships or positions at a studio or a recording label. And this was 2020 when she made this YouTube video. And then in 2025, she was accepting the Grammy for Best Rap Album. Like I say, I had to look up how to pronounce her name. I know nothing. I know so little about her. I literally had to Google this story for what we're recording today. But from getting fired in 2020 to winning a Grammy for Best Rap Album in 2025 feels pretty fast to me.
Mm-hmm.
And probably felt pretty fast to her as well. And what I think happened with her is that she started and she just kept going. And, I don't know enough about the story to say at what point in that timeline did she get what they call a break, or did she have a breakout single or anything like that. But I talk about this book so much, Psycho-Cybernetics, and Maxwell Maltz, who wrote the book, just says, look, once you know your destination and you can articulate it and you start moving in that direction, your mind is going to keep autocorrecting to take you there regardless of what obstacles may come up. And more often than not, it's going to happen quicker than you realize, because most of the obstacles, we put them in the way. We put we planned all the reasons why this can't happen quickly or why it can't happen smoothly. We set most of the obstacles in the way. I think maybe this is the healthy way, is to say, look, my timeline is forever. As long as I keep working on it, my timeline on when this can happen is, I'll never stop working on it. And then I think the irony of it is that it's going to happen so much quicker that way than we ever could have thought possible. So maybe that's the blending of the two. Do you have a goal with no timeline, or do you have a crazy, ridiculous timeline? Maybe the goal is to just say, I'm going to put it out there and as an inevitable thing in the future if I keep working for it. And when it actually happens, will be crazy fast. How's that?
Well, I think it's great. So there are several different options talking about, sprinting, if that feels good to you. We're talking about just shuffling forward at a slow pace or a steady pace, and you get there eventually, or anything in between. But you can know yourself and know whether it feels better to say, hey, if I don't do this in 2 years, I have failed, or whether it feels better to say, I'm building something meaningful and it's okay if it takes the time that it takes. When you know what it is that you want, you might be surprised at the ways that open up for it to come about in your life. When I notice that when you know what you want and you're looking for those things, that those opportunities seem to appear all around you. But when you're saying, this is this thing that I want, but it's never going to happen, you put the blinders on to opportunities, and the little steps forward, get lost in the weeds. So anyway, this week I just want to invite you to write down your big, audacious goal, that one that lives in your chest that maybe feels a little bit scary. And don't worry too much about the timeline. Just write it down. And then that one act of writing it down will probably cut the time in half that it takes to do it. So if it's going to take 50 years, it'll now take you 25 years probably to do that thing. And if you've already written it down, just ask yourself, what is one small, like maybe even embarrassingly small, incremental step that I can take towards this goal, and then take that step. And that's your path. And that's your pace. Well,
slow, steady, Swiss pace.
Yeah, just keep going forward. So thanks for joining us. If any of this stuff resonated, we hope you'll share it with someone else who is a big dreamer. And if you want any more tools or stories like this, you just keep following us here, subscribe. We'd love to have you join us as we ask what could go right.
Hey guys, it's Eric. Before we wrap up today, I want to give you the sailing update. First of all, Italy is sold out. So if you want to go to Italy, you'll have to go another time. We'll miss you. Arrivederci. But Italy is sold out. However, we are going to be in Greece July 19th through the 26th. We have one cabin left. That is for 2 people. So you can fit up to 2 people, or if you want it to yourself, you can book both spots. But we will be sailing out of Athens July 19th through the 26th. We will be in Croatia August 2nd through the 9th. We'll fly in and out of Split. I have 1 full cabin and I have 1 solo spot. I don't know. I can't remember if it's a solo guy spot or female spot. But if you're interested in going to Croatia solo, hit me up. We'll see what we can make happen. I do have 1.5 cabins available for that. Cool thing about these trips, they are 2 days longer than our normal trips. So you get these bonus days. So they're kind of an extra value. And they're beautiful, beautiful spots. So let us know. Also, this is kind of a fun one. I'm going to be going to Greece, and there's a lady who sailed with me 4 times now. Her name is Sandy, and she is sponsoring a ladies only trip. Emily and I are going to be hosting this. It's for women only, and there's going to be 2 parts. You can sail with us for a week, and if you want to, you can also join Sandy for a week of spa and fun land-based excursions that she's organizing. You can do 1 part, just sailing, or you can do both parts. But if we're going to be back in Greece, September 20th through the 27th, we're going to be sailing out of Corfu, which is Western Greece. Beautiful, beautiful spot. So if you're interested in coming on that ladies only trip, let me know. We are then going to be in La Paz, Mexico, the Sea of Cortez, October 20th through the 25th. This is one of the hidden gems of locations that we go to. Most people kind of don't give Mexico its due. It's one of the most stunning spots, and I love it. And we happen to have 2 cabins left. So if you're interested, let me know. We're going to be in Mexico, August 20th through the 25th. We are going to be in the British Virgin Islands, November 10th through the 15th. We have 1 solo female spot. The rest of the boat is already sold out. But if you're a lady traveling solo, you'd be paired up with another lady who's coming by herself. We have 1 solo spot on that trip in the BVI. And then our year wraps up with the Bahamas, December 8th through the 13th. We have 1.5 cabins, meaning 1 full cabin and then a solo spot. And again, I haven't looked up if it's a male or a female spot, but if you're interested, let me know. Would love to have you aboard in the Bahamas. A great way to end 2025. That is the sailing update. And now, before we wrap up entirely, people go sailing with us, and I want you to hear from them directly what kind of experience they have. So here's a sailing takeaway from somebody who's gone sailing with us recently.
I think, like a lot of other folks have said, we were really nervous about the type of crew and the mix of the crew and what it was going to be like. You know, we live in a very culturally, spiritually, politically divided country. I was really concerned about that. Being also, believe it or not, I'm very much an introvert, and both of us are, and we talked about backing out of this several times.
At the hotel. Okay, this is our last chance. Last flight out.
Last flight's out at 4:00. We don't have to get on the ferry, right? So
I love it. I love the honesty.
Definitely was nervous about the being an introvert, being concerned about the mix and everything, and was really concerned about that. Positive is, couldn't be happier with the crew. Have met some great folks from all different walks of life, different places in their life, places in their career,
places
geographically. That I think we've made some friendships that will continue going forward. So, yeah, if you're thinking about doing it, no questions, do it.